Welcome to Cambridge House Live. I'm Bridgitte Anderson at the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference. I am joined by Bill Murphy, who is the chairman of the Gold Antitrust Action Committee. Nice to see you, Bill.
Great to be here, Bridgitte.
First, let's start off with what GATA is. Tell us about that.
GATA is an organization that was formed to expose the manipulation of the gold and silver markets by a bunch of bullion banks like JP Chase, the Fed, the Treasury Exchange Stabilization Fund, Bank for International Settlements, and other banks.
And so right off the bat, people are going to say, what are you talking about? Come on, gold manipulation?
Well, for us, it's the most obvious thing in the world. If you watch how the markets trade on a day-to-day basis, and nothing makes any sense. The more bullish the news, the more the price gets hit. And there's all kinds of things that we follow, when they sell, how they sell, what they do. And even in a bigger picture sense. I mean, you've had quantitative easing 3 in the United States, then quantitative easing 4, then Japan's going to print money forever. And when it all started, even with the Q3, the price of gold was $1,730. You know, now it's $45 less after all those announcements. It just doesn't flow right.
So why don't you think that that people are following this then? What seems to be the gap for people?
Well, we're taking on the richest, most powerful people in the world. And talking earlier, I mean, if you want to get invited to the 18 parties, you don't go there. It's just not mentioned. The press won't talk about it. I was on CNBC 13 years ago. I think it's maybe 14 now. And once they heard what I had to say, not allowed back since. And even though all we've done is collect evidence over the past years, that all fits together.
And you say you have the evidence.
Yes, we do.
All right, so let's break that down a little bit. Where do you see the manipulation and how does it happen?
Well, they do it in the derivatives market, taking the price of gold and silver down at various times, the waterfall attacks on the market. And I think November 25th or 29th on the COMEX, the price went down $25 in 1 minute after the market opened. There was no explanation for it, no reason, nobody said anything, and I call it financial market terrorism. These are terrorist attacks on gold and silver on the price, and it unnerves the whole market. I mean, it just shakes people up. You can be right 1 second and 2 seconds later lose a fortune for no apparent reason.
Now, some might say, well, you're just a conspiracy theorist. Come on, Bill.
Well, we are anyway, except really, in reality, what my colleague will say, we're a fact-finding organization. In reality, conspiracies are the way things are done all the time. It's just 2 or more people doing something in a surreptitious secret fashion. Enron was a conspiracy. Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme was a conspiracy. The LIBOR interest rate scandal that was just revealed with the big bullion banks was a conspiracy.
So what do you do with this information then once you get it?
Well, we put it out in the public domain. I have a commentary every day, Le Metropole Cafe, document it. We send it off to the press.
But the press doesn't seem to be picking up on this.
No, however, it's changing a great deal. This week when it was announced that the Bundesbank is going to get some of its gold back from the Fed, it raised all kinds of eyebrows, and that's a whole different subject because it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
You know, they're taking a long time to get back only 600 tons of gold, 7 years. They can do it in 7 weeks.
So you obviously pay a lot of attention to the gold market. What do you think is happening with the price of gold right now? Where is it going? Or is this just, it's going to be manipulated so much that you can't really make any forecasts?
Well, good question. And if we're right, the prices of gold and silver are going to explode, especially silver. They're just about hitting the wall. JP Morgan and their allies. Supplies are tight. There's shortages in bags of silver, coins. They've stopped sales at the U.S. Mint twice already this year. Metals moving from London to Asia. It's very difficult to buy it in size. And I expect silver is going to make all-time highs this year and actually be streaking towards $100 an ounce before the year is over. Probably much sooner than people think. And part of it's going to become a failure to deliver situations where people want to get the silver and it's not there to give them. It's called force majeure.
And what do you think that means for investors then? Is this how there's opportunities out there to be buying gold and silver stocks, or does it mean buying gold and silver, just the bullion then?
Well, you know, I'm probably the bull of bulls in terms of where prices are going, but if anything is the buy of a lifetime, it's the shares. The dichotomy between what gold and silver has done and the shares is about as wide as it's ever been in history. Many of the share prices of the companies here at this conference have done a complete U-turn. They've gone up and right back down where they were 10 years ago. And some are even lower, even though the prices back then were $4, $5 silver, $300 gold.
Why do you think that is? What's driving that?
Two things. One, it's a theme trade with hedge funds that are long the general market, which a lot of the indices are at all-time highs. The shares get worse and worse and worse, so it feeds on itself. And then it's more nefarious. It is the gold cartel again, selling the shares to keep excitement out of the market. Because right now, at least the way I see it, although you wouldn't know it at this conference, got a great crowd here, the sentiment is as bad as I've ever seen it. There's no money for a lot of these companies. Business isn't being done. The retail investor, because of the poor performance, is running away. And the gold cartel has done their job here. That's one of their mantras, is keep excitement to a minimum.
Why?
Because when gold and silver are on stage and prices are going up, it's bad for business. The Wall Street doesn't like it. The politicians don't like it. What happens when the price of gold spikes, which is rare? It's always something negative for the general market. Too much inflation, bad for the dollar, some kind of crisis. It's like a barometer. So what they want to do is diffuse the barometer, and they do it. And they've been doing it for the last 12, 13 years, and all they can do is manage the retreat because the price goes up every year. But they keep excitement. So as we have now, the sentiment stinks, even though gold's now up 13 years in a row, and yet the sentiment stinks. They've done a great job at that.
So you see a lot of manipulation there, but when you look at what's going on with the U.S. debt structure, for example, what kind of flags does that raise for you?
What kind of what now?
Flags.
Well, we're in a no-solution environment. The politicians are pathetic. I mean, you don't need me to go into that. They're not going anywhere with solving the problem. They can't even cut the rate of the increase of the deficit. We're getting broker and broker and broker. And so what I call is a no-solution environment in which they're just going to print money. There's nothing that's acceptable to the politicians, because if they do what they should do, they won't be reelected. So they won't go there.
So President Obama has been reelected. He's into another 4-year term. What is this going to mean for investors, and what should they be watching for?
Well, if there was some meaningful effort to do something about the U.S. problem in other countries, yes, it probably could affect gold and silver, but the supply-demand situation is so powerful, so strong, with all the central banks coming in and buying now. Just 2 or 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, central banks were selling 500 tons of gold a year. Now they're buying, and although the European banks were selling have stopped. So the supply-demand situation is getting stronger and stronger, with huge buyers in China and India, and other central banks. Right now, actually, the retail public is not there yet. When the retail public comes in, yikes.
Oh, really? You think, how far then? How much upside?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, silver should be streaking towards 100. And our Gold Rush 21 conference in August 2005, with the price at $436, I said it would take $3,000 to $5,000 to clear the market, eventually before the move was over. Now, right now, that's probably too conservative, but I would say that's where the price of gold is headed in the next 2 years, 3 years.
That's bullish.
Yes, it's bullish.
Now, you have been talking about this manipulation, that you call it, in the gold market for 15 years?
February 1999.
Does this, given that you've been talking about it so long and you don't feel like you're getting any traction, does this dishearten you? Or how do you keep going?
Well, we're really close to winning. Somebody's going to surface in the next couple of months. It's very exciting. The CFTC has been given information on JP Morgan of their manipulating the market of the highest order. They won't do anything about it because there's no rule of law in the United States when it comes to regulating things like this. And it's going to service in another way, which I can't get into, but it'll be very visible and very exciting. And
you think that will be the thing that will eventually change public perception about this?
I think that, and what's going on with Germany's gold, it's like a tipping point. There are so many things happening that it all fits together. It won't be able to be ignored anymore. And the more it's exposed, the more people are going to want to go buy more gold and silver, because the prices are too artificially low because of the man's the price. I mean, silver should be way up there now. Gold should be much, much higher. So as this gets exposed, it's going to bring in more buying, and up we go.
So you're not close to giving up?
just warming up.
So what's the next steps then?
Well, it depends. We're having a big fundraiser here at the conference. We had one yesterday. A fellow named Steve Merrill did a great job, a big success. We have another dinner that Al Corlin's putting on for us, and we hope to raise a lot of money. If we get enough money, we'd like to continue our legal efforts against the Fed and Freedom of Information Act stuff and get the truth out there. And it takes money to do it.
It takes money and a lot of effort, I imagine. And are you seeing any kind of gains there on the legal front?
Well, we sued the Fed 2 or 3 years ago and actually got a check from them for $3,000, and we got some documents that they were forced to release. And basically, it says, it's a long subject, but we don't think a lot of the U.S. gold and other banks is there. It's gone. It's been leased out, swapped out. That's what this German gold's about. Through a fellow named James Turk, who's brilliant, you probably know who he is. He uncovered years ago that he thinks that 1,700 tons of German gold was swapped with U.S. gold and then sold it in the marketplace, because the United States can't sell any gold without an act of Congress. But it could swap gold with Germany and sell its gold in the marketplace and not have any questions asked. We think that's what was done, among other things, and now Germany's nervous and they want to start, who knows what's really going on behind the scenes, but they want their gold back, and this is just the beginning.
And you're not giving up your battle. Bill, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, Bridgitte.